and getting back to our meetings. So I think we've got everybody here and so we'll get started. First, thanks everyone who had a chance to come and join that little UAMPS information meeting that we had earlier last month or middle last month. It was nice seeing all of them and getting some questions answered and getting information straight from them and to help with our decisions and stuff that we've got to make. But we'll get started. And first item on the agenda is the approval of the agenda. Did everyone receive email with the agenda?
Yes.
Yes.
I know we're back into Zoom mode here, and so yeah, nods up and down, and that'll be good, so we can see that. And so, is there a motion, or is there any questions on the agenda? Any changes, comments? Okay, looking for a motion on the agenda.
I'll move to approve the agenda.
I'll second that.
Mark first and Andy seconded. So Dick, do you want to start us on a vote?
Yeah, aye.
Todd?
Spriggs, aye.
Andy?
Palmer, aye.
Mark?
Hauser, aye.
Dinsmore, aye. So, okay, thank you. Approval of the minutes. Did everyone have a chance to look over those, and any questions, comments on those?
Nope.
No questions here.
Okay, motion to approve the minutes for December 6th.
I'll go ahead and motion to approve the minutes of December 6th.
I'll second that.
Okay, Todd motioned and Mark seconded. So Andy, do you want to start us on a vote this time?
Yes, Palmer, aye.
Dick?
Saunders, aye.
Mark?
Hauser, aye.
And Todd?
Spriggs, aye.
And Dinsmore, aye. Okay. Next, new business. Rick, are you covering this part?
Yep. I guess just to start off with, to thank you everybody for getting back on Zoom. The sound system and recording stuff in the council chambers died, and they're scrambling hopefully to get it ready for council meeting tomorrow night. And this ended up being the best way to record and to do everything. The city office is also under renovation, so the other council or the conference room was tore up, and so anyway, we appreciate you jumping on. I really did want to do this one in person, but I guess thank goodness for technology. So this item would be to recommend to the council basically to continue on with the carbon-free power project. I'll share my screen and go through a few slides. Some of them will be repetitive to the ones that were able to attend the UAMPS conference. But I think it's good reviewing. And if you've got questions, ask me as we go along or at the end, whichever works best for you. I want to make sure everybody understands where we're at and moving forward on this project. So, and this will be the same slide deck that I present tomorrow night at the city council. So can everybody see that all right? You should be seeing my slide.
Yeah, it's up.
And that was included with the email, wasn't it? Correct?
Yes, it was.
That's what. Okay.
There are
They look.
just a few little changes that I made since that was sent out. All right, who hijacked my screen? And think it's in a gold font, and we can talk about what they're, for the most part, minor changes, and one I added a little bit more detail. So again, this is the same slide deck I'll use tomorrow night.
Somehow Dick keeps swapping over to his screen.
Yeah, I'm
There we
not
go.
getting any video on my end. I'm gonna try to reconnect.
Okay, well, hang on maybe just a second. So you're not seeing my screen?
No, I've got perfect audio. That's,
Oh, okay. So let's give Dick a second maybe to disconnect and reconnect. Should I still be good leaving this up, David?
Yeah, you're good. You can leave it up.
Okay.
You should-
hear me?
Yeah. Can you see it now?
Yep, we're
Oh.
looking good.
Okay, cool. So again, we are, this is the same basic deck that I sent you, or Rachel emailed out, with just a couple minor changes here and there. This slide's just a quick summary of the project. I think everybody's familiar with it. It's the UAMP small modular reactor project using NuScale technology with 677 megawatt units for a total of 462. Washington's current subscription is 17.99. That's due to how I put the resolution together last time, and subscription. The original target really was 20 megawatts, but I think if we elect to do that, there's not a pressing need to do it right now. So I just left it as a continuation of where we're currently at. The target COD, or commercial online date, is 2029 for the first unit and 2030 for the remaining 5. And then this is, will be a very long-term resource in the 40 to 60 year type time frame. Okay. The class 3 estimate was completed by UAMP's NuScale and Fluor. If you recall, the original levelized cost of energy target was $58 in 2020 dollars, and I think that's an important thing to keep in mind. If you think of what your house was worth in 2020 dollars versus what it's worth in 2022 dollars, there's probably a pretty significant difference. So just keep that in mind when we talk about some of the other costs. And so the price target that came in exceeded the 58. So UAMPS as a group could withdraw from the project and be reimbursed for almost 100% of the out-of-pocket expenses. And we've called this in the past an off-ramp provision. And so that's why we're here tonight is, does Washington City stay in the project and move forward? Or, well, let me back up. The PMC has voted to continue with the project. And so unless that decision is changed as a group, if Washington were to walk away, we would be exposed to some costs, and we'll talk about those in more detail here. So with that off ramp, and in order to continue a new budget and plan of finance is needed, and continuing with this project triggers that. But we have three options: to continue at the same rate or higher entitlement share, to withdraw from the project, or to reduce the entitlement share. Okay. And as you can imagine, and this was again explained, this is basically the slide taken from what the UAMPS presentation was. I think it was on January 17th or 18th, something like that. Most of the cost increase of the project was due to basically inflation, and they just listed, this is a very capital intensive project, and so these inflationary percentages since 2020, it shouldn't come to a surprise to anyone that the prices went up to build such a project. And just as if you were to build a house now versus in 2020, your costs would be substantially higher. And one of the things that is a significant driver, because it is capital intensive, basically the interest rates that have gone up basically over 2% since July of 2020 has a very significant impact on the overall cost of the project, those interest costs. Any questions on that? Okay. So when UAMPS got the results of the ECT, and it missed the $58, we had lots of discussion. UAMPS was able to amend the development cost reimbursement agreement to a future, similar protections for a future ECT failure, or if, and this is one of the bigger items, is they were also able to include a subscription target. As everybody knows, subscription for the project's been a challenge. So if the new subscription target isn't achieved by the end of 2023, or I think it may be January of 24, we can withdraw from the project as a UAMPS group with the same protections as if it was an ECT failure. So the new price target in 2022 is $89. So if you translate the $58 in 2020 to 2022, it was in the low to mid 70s. So it's still, quite a ways above that, but you can't directly compare the 58 to 89 without understanding the difference in what year those dollars represent. And while nobody's thrilled about the higher price, it's still competitive with other carbon-free resources, particularly when you consider this is a dispatchable 24/7 resource, and it's very competitive with other advanced reactors, green hydrogen, various storage and battery options. So you need to keep in mind that not all resources have the same capabilities. So, and these are the two big protections or help to de-risk the project for us, is the amended DICRA, as it's called. If it's the same basic economic competitive test protection there has been, other than it's $89 in 2022 dollars. But the second bullet item is a new provision that's in the agreement, which would provide 100% reimbursement if the project subscription doesn't reach 80% by the end of this period, which would require, so 80% is 370. So it requires megawatts of new subscription, basically a year from now, just a little bit under a year. So where are we at right now? The 116 megawatts is where the current power sales contracts that are signed are in place. Again, we need another 254 to get to the 80%. UAMPS is looking at other options, equity partners, other utilities, things like that to fill that. So this is one of the updates from the slide deck that I previously sent. I think before there was only 2 or 3 that had approved to continue with the project. And this was kind of hot off the press yesterday that Beaver, Blanding, Monroe, Brigham City, Hiram, Payson, Spring City, Weber Basin, and Wells have all approved resolutions to continue with the project. Morgan City has elected to withdraw. I believe they were either a megawatt or a megawatt and a half. So of the 116, I mean, it's not good to see that part for them to withdraw, but it doesn't have a significant impact on the 116. And then there are a couple of participants that have indicated that they are at least seriously considering increasing their subscription at this period or during this off-ramp period. And I think there's another 7 or 8 different municipalities and utilities having similar meetings to what we are tonight and tomorrow. And so what does this next phase for the next year look like? It's basically completing the COLA, the combined operating and or construction and operating license agreement or application with the NRC. That's on target to be submitted basically a year from now. And so additional study work, engineering to complete the COLA. And so a year from now, we should be ready to submit that to the NRC to start their approval process. December, the latter part of this year, the estimate will be updated to a class 2, which is a more refined because there's more engineering, more information available. And then the end of this year, that really should probably say the first month, basically it's January of 2024 is where the ECT run will be made. And then depending on the results of that, we'd have a similar off-ramp opportunity. Subscription is key. The last bullet point is additional subscription is obtained, and our cost share or cost exposure reduces. And I've got a little more detail in one of the slides here. Well, I guess this slide. This green is different than what I had, is updated with a little more detail. With a little bit more of the, I guess, meat and potatoes for Washington City. If the city were to withdraw for convenience right now, we would owe the project $4.4 million. And proportionately, that's what will happen to Morgan because they elected to withdraw. They'll have to pay just like some of the others did previously. And if you look closely in the UAMPS documents, there was Appendix X that showed this other amount, this 13.82 million, which is a substantial increase. But I wanted to make sure everybody understood the context. The 13.8 would be if no additional subscription were to occur for the project. And the chances of the project proceeding with no additional subscription, I don't see that happening. If they don't meet the subscription levels, because of the subscription protection, we'd be eligible for 100% reimbursement as a UAMPS group. Now, say they reach 370 megawatts of subscription a year from now, our cost share would only be 4.3 million, basically identical to what we are now, if we withdraw for convenience and the project moves forward. Does that make sense? I know it's a little confusing. Any questions on how that works?
So Rick, what you're saying is right now we haven't spent any of the city's money.
The only thing that this was probably 3 or 4 years ago, the city has only spent, I think it was like 96,000 is what the city has spent so far. Everything else since then has been accruing finance basically, and would be covered on the as part of the $89.
And so basically we have a mulligan right now until January of next year.
Correct.
Because we got no risk to say yes. And if we
That's my
say,
perspective is yes, because I know there was, you see different things out there that, you know, the higher number of people were getting nervous about, which I understand, but that's only if no subscription occurs, additional subscription occurs, and the project moves forward, which I just don't see that happening. Because the spend rate a year from now ticks up dramatically. Once we submit the COLA to the NRC, the cost there, as well as the additional engineering and material procurement, goes, it's quite a bit higher than it is now as a spend rate per month. So we wouldn't pay anything until we start taking power from the plant, unless we withdraw for convenience. And the numbers here, this 4.4 could change a little bit. Depending on like Morgan, they went down. When they pull out, our percentage will go up slightly. If somebody else increases, it'll go down slightly. So I think it's on the next slide. I show there's a little buffer put in the resolution.
Hey, Rick.
Uh-huh.
But at the same time, so if I'm understanding, so right now there's 116 megawatts of the plant sold or committed, correct?
Correct.
So we have 370, or no, the difference, 370 minus the 116 left, right?
Right. That's the 254.
So let's just do a little speculation. Let's say no one else comes on and everybody stays exactly the way they are and build the plant. But that also means that that amount of power is left on the open market to sell, correct?
Well, somebody would have to back it up. So the project wouldn't go forward unless like we were wanting to sign up for additional capacity with the idea that we would sell it. I guess that's the point, is I don't think the project would move forward if we're at the current subscription level.
Okay.
So they
Even
have to be,
right.
they have to be at 80% subscription, and then that other 20% would be out there for us to kind of dip into if we wanted to, right? That's what you're asking. Okay.
Yes. And that was a hard fought negotiating point with UAMPS and NuScale. NuScale obviously didn't want to add that protection. And basically the PMC said, if we don't get that protection, it's done now. And so they were willing to provide that. And it's I think a tremendous protection that we have. So if a year from now, we still are at the 116, even if they meet the price target, if they don't have the 370 megawatts of subscription, UAMPS can basically walk away and get the 100% reimbursement. That makes sense? Answer your question, Mike?
Well, I was kind of going to go with the speculation that the plant goes ahead and gets built, and you've got all that power to sell on the market. Who receives the funds for that? Does that kind of come back towards the plant, and we as owners, UAMPS is the owner of that, wouldn't that kind of cut back our costs too?
Well, potentially it could, but we would say we want the basically 18 megawatts, but if we signed up for 40, we could sell that other 22 megawatts. But
Okay.
that's very speculative at this point.
It is. I understand that side
So
of it.
basically, in order for the project to move forward, somebody has to be accountable for those dollars.
Okay. And I guess this question kind of is something to address next year if they don't meet the 80%. Because if they hit 75, then we have a decision, do we pull or do we continue on? Because let's say they meet the price at 89, but market is 150. Then it's still a very
Correct.
good source. But that's a different conversation to take place next year.
Correct.
Okay.
And I can, yes, that's I think that would be a very long and interesting discussion to have if the scenario you described happened.
But at the same time, if they hit 75, maybe our cost share wouldn't be 4.3, but it might be, and I'm just throwing a number, 5.7, because our share
Exactly.
still drops down. Our
Exactly.
share would still drop.
Right. Because we wouldn't be, it's this percentage is right now, it's the 15.5275% is 116, or excuse me, the 17.99 divided by 116. So if the 116 gets bigger, our percentage comes down.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep, you're exactly right. So the city, meaning, the staff and UAMPS in general, we continue to evaluate all the different options that we might have out there. I think we need to make sure we have a good balanced resource mix so that we're not all in one basket. As you know, we do have wind. We've got a little bit of hydro. We've got solar coming on. And then we have contract purchases. We've got natural gas. And so we're looking at lots of different options. I think there's been several events, even as recent as last month. It's risky to do nothing. We had August of 2020 was crazy pricing, February of 21, September of 22, December of 22, and I think January of 23 are not going to be a whole lot different. In fact, December of 2022, we had the highest average overall wholesale power costs ever for the city.
Wow.
Which is counterintuitive because historically December has been a fairly cheap month, a shoulder month. Natural gas prices went crazy, and power pricing is tied almost directly anymore to what natural gas is doing. Just as a rough example, today, I think they were buying gas for the Nebo plant in the low $4 range. There were times in December it was over $50 for a decatherm. So it's And I actually in my general report, I'll kind of explain a little bit of what we've been seeing even the last 5 days. And it's kind of like a roller coaster at Disneyland. So I think, looking long-term as having a stable resource is a very important thing to have. So staff recommendation is for, I guess this is worded a little different, or for you guys would be for the power board to recommend to the city council to approve participation in the calling at phase 1B, which is this next year, through the class 2 estimate. The overall off-ramp period, there's different things that have to trigger different timing, but basically the city needs to send something back to UAMPS by February 17th. I anticipate we'll be ahead of that based on the action tomorrow night. And then the new budget and plan of finance, if we move forward, would go into effect the 1st of March. And then I mentioned before, if you read the details of the resolution, if because of withdrawals and increases and decreases, that allows basically that 15% to go up or down by, what would it be, 1.5%? Because it allows for a 10% increase in that amount. And that's my basic presentation. I know that's a lot, and there's lots of all kinds of information floating around out there. So anybody have any questions?
As the year goes on, would we be in a position without gambling to increase our share if need be, if it got close to the 80% by the January of next year? Would we want to commit to more than 16% or 16 megawatts, whatever our commitment is?
Yeah, we definitely could consider that. And I think we'd have plenty of opportunity to do that. One, any changes or people that come into the project management committee must approve that. So say if somebody came in and says, hey, we want to buy the rest of the plant, the PMC would have the ability to say, well, we'll sell you that, but we want the first, we'll look at it first before we give them a final number of what that would be. So I think we're well protected in that regard, if we wanted to do that. And again, part of our challenge is, this time of year, our load varies from 12 megawatts to 18 or 19 megawatts. And of course, this is a few years out, so I expect those to increase. But during the summer, we're in the mid 50s. So it's a challenge. How much this is going to be more of a 24/7 baseload type resource. So I don't think we'd want to go out and buy 50 megawatts that we only need for parts of 3 months of the year. So we're trying to do that balance as best we can.
Hey, Rick, I wonder if we just need to kind of make a note that maybe in the future we have a work meeting or something with the city council and kind of have that kind of a discussion to see what their idea of an appropriate amount to commit to this project as we go forward. And also what our load increases do as we increase the amounts that we're needing. And look at this as being that option if this continues down that road. And if that's something we may want to kind of include on them and get their thought as we're continue looking at this, or if they're wanting to go a different direction or make us more broader in some of our sources.
Right. No, that's a great suggestion, and I don't see why we couldn't schedule that.
I'm thinking that would be a good preliminary plan, but we also, so January 2024, right, is the next off-ramp? Is that the
Correct.
next off-ramp date? So that is, let's see. Yeah, so the elections are the next November, right? So we've got
Actually,
to.
the elections will be this coming November, correct? Yes, I think that's right.
2024, right? So
It'll be the election will be for the. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's right. It's 2023. November of 2023, where there'll be 3 council seats up, I think it is.
yeah, that'll be local elections. I'm also talking about
Oh, correct.
national elections as well in 2024.
Right.
So
You're right.
administration changes it depends on what we see this next couple of years, and then the administration change, if there is an administration change in 2024.
Right. And as we've reported previously, both Republican and Democratic administrations have been supportive. And there's lots of articles. In fact, I read one earlier today from IEEE that talked about, in order to achieve some of the green goals by even 2050, they said there's no way that it can be realistically be done without nuclear in the mix.
Absolutely.
So more and more people are realizing that this needs to be a key part of the process.
So then what percentage will this be within our dynamic of the energy that we're buying?
Well, during the off-peak months, meaning not probably June, July, August, or September, the 18 megawatts would cover probably anywhere from, depending on the hour, from 80 to 100% of our load.
Okay.
And we have other resources, so we would be long on those months where we would look for opportunities to sell. Or the plant obviously can back down if needed, its output, if it's not needed, but your most economic obviously is to spread those fixed costs over as many kilowatt hours as possible.
Absolutely.
So, so there are options available, and but yeah, we would, for most of the year, if we had this today, we would be long. During the summer, we'd still be short a little bit. So again, that's part of the challenges with our loads dramatically changing during the summer months when it gets hot.
Well, thank you, Rick.
No problem. Any other questions?
I'm willing to make a motion.
I'll second that if we're ready to do that. Yeah.
Okay, I'll make a motion that we recommend to the city council that we approve participation in the COLA development, phase 1B of the project through class 2 estimate and preparation of the COLA for submission to the NRC in January 2024.
I second that.
Oh, sorry, Todd, do you want to start us out? Sorry, I hit mute.
Yeah, Spriggs, aye.
Andy,
Palmer, I.
Mark,
How's right?
and Dick,
Saunders, aye.
and Dinsmore, aye. Okay. Rick, do you know when this is being presented tomorrow? Is it at the first of the meeting or last?
It'll actually be twice. It'll be, there's part of the work session that will start at 4 o'clock.
Okay,
There's one other item, agenda item that would be first. And then the main discussion will happen in the work session. And then the agenda tomorrow is actually probably the lightest agenda I've seen since I've been here. And there's the consent agenda, one ordinance, and then this resolution is really all that's on the agenda tomorrow. So there'll be probably the main discussion of 4 o'clock, a little bit after 4, and then the other will be just after 6. So
Okay.
if you're able or wanting to attend one or both meetings, that would be terrific. I know the 4 o'clock probably is ahead of most of you that are still working.
The 4 may work with me. The school district's got a parents meeting that I think is at 6 or 6:30, so I may be able to hit the 4 o'clock, the work meeting.
The 4 o'clock, I would say, would be where probably 80-90% of the discussion will be.
Okay.
And I think we'll have plenty of time to discuss it there, and it may spill over, but
Okay,
I would anticipate most of it would be at the 4 o'clock meeting.
okay, all right.
And that should be in the council chambers with the new sound system.
Yay.
Okay, well, thank you, everybody. I know this has been it's been a hot topic and something that we've gone over a long time and weren't looking forward to this, but thanks for everybody on the research on everything that's gone on and comments and everything. So next on the agenda, regular business, operations and generation.
Okay. Kind of ignore the picture for just a minute, if you would. I just don't want to go in and out of the share screen too many times. So for the department in general kind of report, we've held interviews for, I think we all know that we were kind of 2 people down. We've held interviews. We decided to move one of the positions at least to an apprentice, and boy, did we get a response on that. We had 98 applications before we stopped accepting applications. And we've made an offer. We had interviews last week, and we've made an offer to an individual. I think he'll accept it. We're just waiting to hear back. So we're excited to have him start. And then the second position, I'm still working with Wayne and Caden, deciding if we want to keep that open. Do we want to do a lineman or possibly even another apprentice? So we'll keep you posted on that, but it'll be great to have another hand to help the crew out. Probably the next big item that will be coming your way will be the cost of service and rate study. And we have a Zoom meeting scheduled with Utility Financial Services next Thursday that will present to staff what the preliminary results are. If things go well, I'm hoping that we could present that at our March meeting, at least the preliminary results of that, because I think we need to move fairly quickly, or even possibly if we don't make I think it's March 7th meeting again. If we don't make that, we could possibly even look at maybe calling for an interim meeting, because we need to, I feel strongly, and I think Jeremy does, is we need to have the rates in place prior to the summer season. I don't think July is the best time to implement a rate increase. So we will keep you posted on that. They have all the data from us, and we're waiting to, hear back from them on that. Any questions on that particular item? So like I say, that'll be the next, bigger, heavier item that comes before the power board. We continue to, work with new developments as they come in. One of the bigger projects that we've been working with is up by the Grapevine Trailhead. Is where our new substation site will be, and along with that will be a pretty elaborate trailhead. And so we're working with the developer, the other city departments, to determine the best way to move forward on that project. We're looking at potentially doing the overall site grading. They'd put the trailhead in, and for us, we'd grade our substation site and put up the block fence at this point in time is what I would foresee. And so the timing on that for the rest of the sub will depend on development and load growth in the area. Excuse me. So the picture that got up now is the Main Street, excuse me, the Main Street substation rework of the 69. It's one of the transmission foundations that will have a new pole on. There's some exciting pictures of the hole, and these are fairly large holes, and this just shows how they form those up. And the rebar cage here on the second one is going in. The first one's all set up for concrete. This is a pole that's just south of I-15 on Main Street. It's actually not part of the substation project. It's part of the UDOT new interchange project. That one's 5.5 feet in diameter and 20 feet deep. So he was down almost to depth there. And the concrete contractor that the substation contractor hired did a really good job on the foundations. And that's the result when it's done. So you don't realize how much concrete's underground on the poles when you drive by. That's just at the substation. I don't know if you've been up there in the last couple of days. They started setting steel yesterday, and they probably have half of it up now, and by tomorrow all the steel should be up. And the new structures are taller than the original ones, but we're doing a lot of switching and fitting a lot of capability in a small area. So we had to go a little bit higher in order to make all that happen in a small area. So there's that project is well on its way and going well. 300 North, Rachel got word from TDS that it's moved into their construction phase. So hopefully we'll see some of that transfers happening, and then we can remove the old poles. It's all that's remaining on that project. On 200 East, we're going to be rebuilding that from basically Telegraph to probably about 400 North. And we've got a couple poles changed. We've been working with the surveyor, and we've got the new alignment and staked. And as the substation is the priority project right now, but as the crew has time, they'll be replacing poles up 200 East as well. This was an interesting one that happened. We had a dump truck here. I guess he had a brain cramp and forgot to put his bed down and drove down the road and pulled over. And so the crews did a great job. It was a nice, cold, rainy day, of course. And they worked, I don't know, it was probably about 11:30 before they got the new pole in. Fortunately, it only affected 3 customers, so it wasn't a large outage, but that picture's the transformer was pulling it down here. It was hanging from the communication line, and the other communication line here was keeping it from flipping all the way over. And that's some of the damage done to the communications when it yanked the pole out of the ground. It used to be right here. So I mentioned I was going to share a little bit with you on where we've been power costs and gas pricing per decatherm. Just to give an idea of how things have been, even the last week have been kind of a roller coaster. On January 30th, gas was at $9, just a little over $9 a decatherm, and power was $100. 2 days later, gas had doubled to $18, and power had almost doubled to $185 a megawatt. The next day, gas was at $5.09, so it was less than a third, and power was down to 44. And as recent as yesterday, power was back up some hours as high as 125. So we've been experiencing extreme volatility back and forth on both gas and power pricing. So as I mentioned, December was not a good month. It actually exceeded September's that we had a long discussion over. And one thing I may mention in this is because of that, we did chat with the council at their first, or was it the second meeting in January, that and explain that situation. And since we didn't have the power board meeting that fit in there, they agreed that we just move the PCA to the actual calculated value instead of artificially holding it low. And again, that'll come out as part of the cost of service and rate study of where we go. So that's what's been implemented this last month. Let's see, I covered most of that page. On our solar installations, we had 5 in December, 6 in January, as far as applications come in. So they've backed off quite a bit. I suspect inflation and interest rate increases have impacted that. But we will be, as part of the rate study, we will be, one of the things they'll address is the buyback rate that's in our policy. So there'll be the rate. We want to, we'll be looking at whether or not we want to do size limits. Some of these, they're getting pretty crazy on what they're trying to put on a house. And there's some wanting to put multiple production meters on, and many things that you don't anticipate until they find a new widget or gadget or a way to do things. And so that'll be another thing that'll come, I'm guessing, probably March, April, as we update our renewable energy policy. See, what does Wayne have? Other things, Jordan Jolly passed his second year apprentice test in early December. So that's great. And so he's halfway through his apprenticeship, and he does a great job for us. The annual tree trimming is basically done. There's 4 or 5 trees that, for different reasons, the tree trimmers need to go back and do. One family had a death in the family, and they just asked not to have people there for a few days, and so we'll go back and get those. But for all practical purposes, our annual tree trimming is done, other than just a few odds and ends. We were able to finally get on to Veterans Park and take the Christmas tree down. You probably may have noticed it stayed up longer than usual, but with all the rain, we didn't dare take the trucks out there and tear up the park. So we
My
got that.
2-year-old noticed, and he says, "Thank you for leaving it up."
Who noticed?
My 2-year-old.
Oh, well, good. Well, I'm glad we made him happy.
Absolutely did.
Good. Yeah. The crew attended their annual tortoise training. Since we have some lines up in the habitat, they have to attend a training to make sure they know what to do if they encounter a tortoise, and to keep the tortoise safe and them from getting in trouble.
I'm glad you weren't trying to train the tortoises.
No, I don't. You're not allowed to do that. So, I think that's the main thing. I mean, there's lots of just ongoing day to day. The one outage I showed you was probably the biggest one. We had another pad mount transformer fail in another area that I think affected 5 or 6 homes. They just had to swap that out. So, any questions on, I guess, stuff around here? If not, we can move on to the UAMPS items.
Good here.
Good, Mike. We did make, and the timing was missing a meeting. I can't remember, but I think we haven't met since we did make a forward purchase for power and gas for 2023. On the power, we had different amounts for each month. Some months will probably be above market on that purchase, and other months will be below, with the idea of providing at least a stable known amount that we can count on, and not be subject to some of the market extremes. For the gas, we bought gas, I think it was 4 hours a day for June and September, and 6 hours a day for July and August. And that run came in, make it about a $94 run, which isn't bad for a peaking resource. And we can still extend those runs by buying additional gas. But we at least have that going into this upcoming summer. Again, trying to find ways to make things a little more stable and predictable. And the price that I think we got it for $8 a decatherm, which was cheaper than almost all hours of last summer. So we felt pretty good about that on that one. And Jake and I continue to look at possibly a longer term purchase for like 24, 25, and 26, and look for opportunities there on both the power and gas side that we can, again, not necessarily chase the final cheapest last cent, but something that we can predict and we can live with on that. So, on the Nebo project, which is the natural gas plant in Payson, they took it offline back in October for a planned outage and found problems. I think I've reported that in November and December. It's finally back online. They got it online, I think, around January 28th. And so that's been really good. That didn't help not having that resource available in December and January. But it's back up and running. And in fact, they reported that they feel like that they can even squeeze out a few more megawatts out of it, on 3 or 4 megawatts out of 130. So not a huge amount, but every little bit counts right now. One other thing to report on that project is the project management committee has directed UAMPS to look into running it more of a base load at the most efficient run point. And that would still give us some flexibility during the summer to increase output when the need is there. So I noticed for the UAMPS meetings next week, that's an agenda item, and hopefully have more definitive information to provide to you. But again, that will help. Historically, that plant for the most part has relied on day ahead or market gas. And because of the volatility, everybody feels it was important to, again, create more of a predictable product. And from what I've heard so far, it looks favorable that we can get some pretty good runs and still get a longer term gas purchase. So our Vail plant just north of here, it's been running well. We've been pretty consistently getting between 700 and 900 kilowatts, basically a megawatt, a few hours, even slightly above that, depending on how cold it is outside and how much gas they're compressing. The Red Mesa project is scheduled to come online for their commercial operation date next month. We could start seeing some test power here shortly as they bring that facility up. So we should start seeing a little bit of solar. We've only got a megawatt in that plant. Our bigger solar one is the Steel Solar, and they're still struggling getting panels through U.S. Customs from their supplier Longi. And so they're actually starting to look at what options might be to look at the different suppliers. So we'll keep you posted on that. They say it's still on track to come online the end of this year. And I really hope that's the case. So, and we have about 8 megawatts in the 2 phases of that project. So I believe I reported in December that the Enchant project is officially been discontinued with UAMPS.
Yeah.
For various reasons. It just didn't work out. UAMPS is looking into, and we're participating in studies of a geothermal project, additional natural gas project, anywhere from engines similar to what we have to maybe another turbine, and then also another solar project. And this one has a 4-hour battery capability with it too, which would make it a little better. Of course, the cost goes up when you add the batteries, but so far the pricing looks like it could be reasonable. So again, as a whole, UAMPS is short on resource, so we're looking at lots of different options to fill those resources. So the wind projects, the Horse Butte and Pleasant Valley, they both actually had good months. They were capacity factor in the 40% range, which is really, really good for wind. Normally it's in the 20s and maybe into the 30s. So that just means there were lots of storms, which I think the rain carried that out. So obviously on the Colorado River hydro project, everybody's hoping to keep storming and snowing, and that hopefully some of the drought can be relieved a little bit and some of the pressures on those reservoirs. So again, we don't have a lot from those projects, but it does affect the availability of power in the area, which affects the pricing that we pay. So that's pretty much UAMPS in a nutshell. And kind of what I had for tonight, unless somebody has questions.
Sounds good.
Well,
No
thank you.
questions from anybody? Okay, thank you, Rick. Yeah, I look forward to hearing some of these other options that we might have out there and seeing what we can do for sources and stuff. So,
Yeah, because one thing is, the CFPP is important, but we're still 6-7 years out. And of course, some of these new resources are 4 to 5 years out too. So it's a real challenge to get stuff right now.
yep, yep. All right, any questions, comments from anybody? Okay, then is anybody got a motion for adjourn? Oh, well, first off, so next month is March 7th. Okay. So March 7th, mark your calendars for that. And does anybody have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion that we adjourn.
I'll second that.
Okay, so Dick made the motion, Mark seconded it. So Todd, do you want to start us out?
Spriggs, aye.
Andy,
Palmer, I.
Mark,
Hauser, aye.
and Dick,
Saunders, aye.
and Dinsmore, aye. So, okay, thank you everyone for joining us and have a wonderful evening. If you can join us and be there tomorrow, great. If not, don't worry about that, but we look forward to seeing everybody.
Thank you.
Yep. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Rick.
Thanks, Rick.
Thanks, Rick.
Thanks, everybody.